BAATV, Vietnamese American Arizona Television. Hello everyone, I'm LINHVI. Welcome back to BAATV.com, to the world of real estate world, and especially to the beginner who wants to do investment and earn some profits. There are so many situations out there, and knowledge is the power. That's why we have Scott Barlowe from SF Fuller Real Estate Investment to provide all the information needed to start the investment from small to large. Hello, Scott. How's your day?
Hi, it's been great.
Yeah.
It's warm out and
very warm.
And there are people looking to buy real estate even in the heat.
Oh yeah, because when they want to look at the property, they have to go directly to the place to know the area, isn't it?
You're
That's
exactly right. I mean, real estate is driven by location, because the location is the ground and the earth, and it's the earth that lends itself to the term and the legal ramifications of being real estate. Anything that's built on it and attached to the ground is also considered real estate.
So you sell everything on earth.
Everything on the earth.
Last talk show we got the great response from the audience, and there's a few questions I just want to address to you first before we move into the topic.
You bet.
So somebody, they don't understand the term of appraisal.
You
so
bet.
You can explain that.
Okay, an appraisal is the lenders minimizing their risk. They have a specialist who will go out and look at the property. Their client typically has made an offer on a property and now they're under contract. And they're looking to process the loan, so the lender hires an appraiser who has a huge amount of experience and training so that they can go out and look at a property and then compare what that property's current value is. There's a lot of government regulation on that. There's state regulation on it. So they have to have very specific standards that they have to go through. Once they complete their on-site appraisal, generally the report that they produce, it's certainly for a residential property, it's usually about 40 or 50 pages. And it's a standard form that's produced by the federal government, especially if it's going to be a government-backed loan. But they have to have a minimum number of properties that they're doing it, that other properties that have sold, and they're doing a comparison to. But the appraisal comes up with a dollar value at the end of it. But like anything else, like if I were to do a comparative market analysis, it's still my opinion. An appraiser does it, his opinion may be better than mine.
So he is like a state certified appraiser who got the license,
Exactly
specializing
right.
about that to determine the market value.
Yes,
right?
exactly right.
Yeah.
And so once that lender gets that appraisal back, they can look at it and they go, is the loan to value proper? Is this a good risk for us to loan on? So that appraisal coming in at value or very close to is extremely important to most transactions.
So that's for whoever borrowed the loan. How about if the purchaser just do like a cash deal? Do you think it's worth to get an appraiser for that?
On occasion, I've had clients who were doing cash transactions who did it both ways. The price of appraisals has gone up over the last few years.
Okay.
But nevertheless, it is a way of reducing risk, and that's what we're always trying to do is to reduce our own exposure and to say risk. It's if we're putting money out there to buy something, we want to make sure that it's a good value for the money that we're spending.
I see.
So
does that cost a lot for the fee?
I've seen on a residential appraisal, I would say you're probably in the $500 to $600, maybe even $700 range. It depends on the size of the property. If you do a commercial appraisal, because a commercial appraisal not only takes into account what other surrounding properties have sold for, but it also looks at replacement costs. In other words, if say the property was burned down, how much value is left with that real estate, and how much value has to be accounted for replacing that. And then the last thing is income, because if you have a property that is producing income, you have to do a comparison to understand how much value that adds to the property. So it's those three things are it's far more involved than just a typical residential appraisal.
So the appraisal is that only working with the lender, or they can do outside transaction like that?
They can do outside things, and on occasion, if say you've got a very difficult property, and I've got a property right now that does not conform to county zoning,
All right.
and if it was strictly appraised as a residential property, it would not come in at value. But as we've talked with other appraisal companies, they see the commercial value on the property.
Oh, okay.
And so what they're looking for is sort of a hybrid where they can bring in a commercial appraisal to take a look at it
Oh.
because of the added
Then
value.
it will add value, yeah, so that's good. So hopefully, so which means that appraisal is the person who determine the value of the property, and you either need it when you purchase cash or whatever, depend on if you want to do that, spend money and get some information.
I would say probably 90% of most cash buyers do not do an appraisal.
Oh, okay.
They typically will be satisfied with what we call as comparative market analysis, and that's where a real estate or a realtor or a real estate agent goes through and they put together. Oftentimes, the same properties that the appraiser is using are the same properties that the realtor is using.
Oh, so that saves them money.
It can save them money, but they need to, like anything else, you need to weigh it on what's the cost benefit for you.
Right. But actually, like when they just want to make sure like they don't overpay for the price, right?
Yes.
But that's how the real estate broker or agent are helping them come along and help them to determine for those situations.
I have had situations where I've had cash buyers.
Yes.
And they were trying to purchase a home. And this is back in 2008 when there were so many foreclosures. And so they were going to buy a house up in the Cade Creek area. And they were going to pay cash for it. And as it turned out, when the appraiser went out there, the appraiser measured the house because that's one of the requirements for that for a residential.
The whole house, inside.
Yes, inside and out. And as it turned out, the house was 200 square feet smaller than it was listed in county records.
Oh, so is that better?
Well, no, because
they don't add
because
value when it's bigger.
The additional square footage certainly does add value. So what in this case was the buyer looked at it and go, the house isn't as valuable as what they're saying it is because it's not as big as what the records say it was.
They cannot count that.
No, no.
And also, another thing is like I have the situation like if they build something that no permit, the appraisal can't count it either, right?
Well, there's a little bit of back and forth on that. Generally speaking, if it's living space, they won't count it.
Okay.
And when I say living space, that means that it's the air's conditioned, heat and cooling.
I say a separate room or separate. Like a living guest house, something like that.
Yeah, no, they're not likely to accept that. They can count it as additional add-on.
If it's on the record, then they can count.
Exactly, and there's always a way to get that on the record, I might add. Most jurisdictions have a method in place where if something was added onto a building and it was not permitted, you can go back to the city, and generally there's some type of remediation that they can go through, and it will require a building permit as well as inspectors to go out to make sure that it's up to code. But the
possibility that they can add that value into the house.
by correcting the record.
Okay. Will it cost much? Because they just afraid like if like if the cost to come and ask people to come out from the city, did they charge for a certain fee?
It can be the city with the building inspection process. It's usually based off square footage and size, how many stories and those types of things. But I do know that it's worthwhile to have do things right, because I know somebody that built over some property lines, and they had to have 15 feet of their building cut off after it was completely finished.
Oh boy, then they have to take everything down?
Yes.
Oh boy. So so let's say if they ask for the city to come out and do the inspection and they don't have money to take down, would that like a violation?
Well, in the instance that I just gave, it was
Uh-huh.
over their property line. It was onto somebody else's property. It was actually
So
into,
it's really
into the roadway.
violate too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I would, with a simple room addition on your own property, it's just worth going down and getting
Go
that.
down and get the permit. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to add to
What
that.
I would say is go down and talk to development services or building safety and ask them what the process is
Yeah.
before you go ahead and get the permit.
Because I know like sometimes when they have two unit, twoplex, and then they have like a big lot in the back, so they build another unit in the back.
Yeah.
So it's like 3 unit, you know.
Yeah, but
So-
you need a permit.
but that's need a permit, yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I think that's worthwhile for doing that. So and then the next question, the audience also want to know typically about auction for the investment. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that good?
Auctions are
How many types like that?
if you think of it, it's simply a sale where it's occurring right now and it's interactive between the seller, who's usually represented by an auctioneer, and the buyers.
Okay.
And typically you have a number of buyers. I'm most familiar with the auctions that we had back in 2008 when we had all the foreclosures.
Okay.
Now those properties were foreclosed on, and at the county courthouse is where they were issuing or going through the auction
The
process.
auction.
They were selling those.
I see.
Now, in some cases, some of the banks still had reserves on it. So let's say that the opening price for the auction on a house was $80,000,
Okay.
and it
Reserve.
maybe it got up to $100,000.
Uh-huh.
But the bank had a reserve on it of $105,000.
Oh.
So they're not required to sell it if it doesn't go over.
But unless if the winner can pay based
Pay
on
the bank
whatever the bank wants, then
Yep,
it's okay,
yep,
right?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
One thing that's common with all the auctions that I'm familiar with
Yes.
is that you will have the auctioneer who's representing a seller or multiple sellers.
Okay.
And then you'll have the folks who are bidding on it. The folks who are bidding on it prior to the auction itself generally have to put down a bond.
I see.
And I've seen that bond anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000.
I see.
The idea is that they just don't want somebody coming in there and raising their hand
Exactly,
and,
yeah,
and
yeah.
winning,
Uh-huh. No money.
and they have no money, is exactly right.
Yeah.
Because if somebody goes in and they do win the bid,
Right.
and then they fail to make the payment for it, they usually have a day or two
Okay.
to deliver all
to
those
deliver all
funds.
the funds.
But if they don't make that payment, then they lose their earnest deposit.
Oh, they lose the earnable deposit. Oh.
So it could be $5,000 or $10,000.
Oh,
But
I
like I
see.
said, I've seen it where it's been fairly high.
It's like where can they find the auctioneer to help them to for the bidding process?
Usually, you need to contact the county and
Okay.
find out when they're doing when they're auctioning off foreclosed properties, and that's usually your best source right there.
Or is that like a real estate broker can help them to? Do they have commission when they do that?
No,
No.
you're
Oh.
given a straight price.
Oh, okay. So which means like if they ask for the help from the real estate individual, then they have to like compensate separately.
They'd have to
right?
compensate them
Yeah, because
separately.
the other seller won't. I mean, the bank won't give any.
The county won't.
Won't. Or the county.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's how you could bring a realtor in there. You could also have the realtor go with you to look at the house, because generally prior to the inspection, prior to the auction, there's a little bit of an inspection period where you can go look at it.
Right.
You may not be able to go inside, but you can go on the outside of the building. So you can do somewhat of a get somewhat of an idea of the condition of the building.
Oh, okay. Okay. So all those auction property, can they come look in advance? Like the real estate agent can take them?
Yes, usually you'll get at least a week or two in advance of when it's going to be done. Now, mind you, you may get a list, and in between the time you get the list and the time of the auction, that particular property may be gone, because the
Offer.
the people that are being foreclosed on
Yes.
have the right to go ahead and satisfy that deficiency up until the auction itself.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's very good to know.
Yeah, the courts would rather see homeowners stay in their own homes, and so that's why they favor that approach.
So usually, so the auction doesn't matter if they purchase for themselves or purchase as an investment, right?
No,
They don't count that.
it doesn't,
Yeah.
the auction doesn't have any difference between those two.
Like they don't like special. They say like no, you invest, you can't invest.
Nope.
So then, are those only? So how do they do auction after everything complete? Then they can do online, or
No, I still think for the most part, I think
you have to go be there.
you have to be there.
Raise your hand.
It used to be,
Raise your hand.
for a while, it used to be every Tuesday.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well,
But-
great to know.
But, you know, the funny thing is, and this is going back, like I
Uh-huh.
said, back to 2008 when we were in the recession,
Yes,
you would look at a list and there would be 100 properties.
huge. Wow.
And now, you know, there may be a number
Less
of notices that go out,
Oh,
but for every 3 notices of foreclosure, and now that's the first day, 90 days thereafter is when they can have the auction.
ah,
But when that first notice goes out, usually I would say 2/3 of them are satisfied within 60 days.
oh, okay.
People,
Yeah, they will
people
find a
still
way.
have, yeah, and the other thing too is, as compared to 2008 and before, now people have a lot more equity in their homes.
I see. Yes.
And
yes.
so
they can get a
they
loan.
can turn around
Yeah,
and they
turn
can
the-
sell it and
sell it.
actually walk away with some cash in their pocket.
Ah, well, that's a good like that's really safe and get the profit at the last minute, huh?
Yep.
Like they don't let it go loose by
Right.
just like that.
And I would say the number of homes that are under foreclosure now is probably about as low as it's ever been. I mean,
Really?
the rate
Yeah.
is just, it's incredibly low.
Ah,
There's just too many.
because they don't let it happen, like you said. Like,
Well,
they-
it's because
I mean,
people have equity.
yes, that's
The-
right.
The
People-
value of homes has gone up over the last few years.
Yeah.
And so that gap between what they owe and what it's valued at has gone up. So the more that happens, that equity that's in between market value and what they owe can be money that can go back to the seller if they were to sell the home.
Yeah, I remember the term like what they call a short sale.
Short sales.
Yeah, right. For whoever into the foreclosed situation, right?
Yep, and what a short sale was, it was somebody who was being given notice of foreclosure, and they wanted to try to sell the property.
Right.
And the bank agreed that they could go ahead and sell the property. What would happen is they would put it on the market with a realtor. They would get a contract, and often it was a contract below market value.
Right.
But they present that to the bank, and oftentimes it took the bank weeks, if not months, to make a decision on whether or not to accept that offer. And they did sell an awful lot of properties that way.
But like so the listing still show the regular listing on even though the bank not sure the bank approve or not.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's the way it
but
would
that's
be listed.
determined based on what if the bank approve, right?
No,
When they
it
purchase
would
the
be
property,
it would be listed
it's worth-
in the MLS as a short sale.
Okay. So which means that the purchaser have to wait. Yeah. they have
Exactly,
to wait
and that
until
the
approve.
purchase or the seller could accept the contract,
Uh-huh.
but they weren't the final say. The bank
Right.
was the
The
final
bank is
say.
the final say because the bank owned the property.
And they own the note, that's for
They own
sure.
the note. Yeah, they own. So back to like the for investment. So a lot of people was thinking like, how can they qualify to purchase a piece of property? How do you determine that? Because I know like if they rent a house and they got to be 3 times income in order to get qualified to rent a property. So
Well,
how do they base?
there's a variety of ways
Yeah.
that they can do it. You know, one of the simplest is to go through the traditional mortgage program, like you would when you're buying a house. You know, if as an investor, if I wanted to buy a house and use some of the low-cost loans, you know, kind of first-time
Right.
home buyer loans,
Uh-huh.
I could still buy a duplex
Oh, okay.
or a threeplex or a fourplex.
That's still considered like first time buyer, right?
But they're all
They got
residential
3.
properties.
Oh, okay.
So I could buy one of those and live in a
That's
unit.
a good idea. Uh-huh.
Buy one and live in a unit
Ah,
at least 2 years,
okay.
but that way you qualify for the loan
Right.
as your residence. So you
Okay.
get a little bit more favorable loan than you would just going out as an investor trying to buy
Wow.
conventionally.
Yeah. So this is a very good idea. Instead of buy first-time buyer have some kind of benefit like that. They buy one, now they can buy three, and then they still get the same benefit.
You could
as
buy up to a fourplex, so you
Oh.
could have
Wow.
a 4-unit apartment building, and you could live in one. Then you've got the other 3 units that are generating income and paying your mortgage.
Wow, it's very good to know. And then I know that when you come first walked in, you say you have some news to share with
Sure.
with the audience. It's very interesting, so that they will know, have some kind of idea about the investment, about how they want to like proceed with their real estate transaction nowadays.
Well, one of the things in the Phoenix area that we've got going for us, as opposed to some other places in the country, is the fact that we're still going through growth with jobs and population. And it doesn't appear that anytime soon that it's going to slow down. Just yesterday, and I'm going to read you just a couple of quick little headlines, but this is from the Arizona Commerce Authority, and it says here, Benchmark Electronics coming to Mesa, bringing 100 jobs. Procter & Gamble going to Coolidge, 500 jobs.
Wow.
Blue Origin, who makes avionics and systems for engineering.
Wow.
Hundreds of new engineering jobs. Corning is coming to Gilbert, 250 jobs.
Wow.
Let's see, just a couple of quick others here, but the Taiwanese semiconductor facility that's up on I-17,
Uh-huh.
4,500 new jobs.
Wow. Is that a new company or?
They're out
Okay.
there building their campus right now. They're going to move some of their semiconductor production from Taiwan to here into Phoenix.
I see.
LG Energy, who's putting in a $5.5 billion plant for batteries, coming to Queen Creek, and at least 2,500 jobs. The
Wow.
American Battery Factory is coming to Tucson, and there's 1,000 jobs.
Wow.
And I could go on and on, but the point being
Wow.
that there are high-tech jobs, there are companies coming here, they're expanding, they're already breaking ground in many cases.
Wow.
So those folks that come in here, they need to find housing. We're already at a housing disadvantage.
Right.
Here in the state of Arizona, we're about 70,000 affordable homes short. So that puts people into apartments.
Right,
And if you
exactly.
can rent to them, at least they have a home to start with, and you have a steady source of
Source
income.
of income, yes. Wow, that's a good to know. Yeah, because if anywhere more job offer, then more people will come in, and population increase, and then the housing demand and all kind of business and everything. So
Yep.
So this is like for a surrounding, or which area?
Well,
most
this
likely.
this
The-
this is for the Phoenix area,
Phoenix,
but I wanted to share with you real quickly.
Yes.
Nobody's got a crystal ball and can tell you exactly what the mortgage rate is going to be in the next quarter. But
Exactly.
there's 3 predictions that I picked up yesterday. One is from Fannie Mae, and here we are. We're in the 3rd quarter of 2023, and they're predicting that in the 4th quarter of 2023. Let me back up. We're in the 3rd quarter of 2023, and the interest rate is 6.8%.
Oh.
So
That's
Fannie Mae
good.
is predicting in the 4th quarter that it's going to drop down to 6.6, and then by the 1st quarter of 2024 down to 6.4. Now,
So, okay, so which means it's going to be go
The-
down, but
the-
like for
they're-
right now,
they're
based on
expect-
whatever right now.
they're
yeah.
expecting it to go down.
Expecting, okay.
And both the Mortgage Brokers Association as well as National Association of Realtors, they have similar numbers. But the thing I guess I'm trying to get across here is that we should expect that interest rates will trend down, but as you just heard, those are only 0.1%. Don't
Right.
expect interest rates to fall
Oh, tremendously.
tremendously here within the next 6 months. There's kind of a saying, buy the property, but get the loan, because you've got a lot of folks right now who are sitting there and they're in their homes at 3%. I can guarantee you, most of those people did not start off in that home at 3%.
Oh.
Many times they start off at a higher interest rate, and every time that there's a favorable move, they refinance.
Oh, okay. So I know what you mean.
So
just like take advantage of whatever
advantage
right now,
of what's happening.
And then if it come down, then refinances.
Exactly.
Right? Oh.
Exactly.
Wow. Because back then the interest rate only 2-3%.
Well, we got
now,
spoiled.
This interest, you say nation for Fannie Mae, but is that to a certain amount of loan value, loan amount, or like up to what one? How much?
They've continued to push up their lending amounts.
Lending amount, yeah.
So they're officially over 600,000.
Oh, okay. So they consider a jumbo loan? Or
jumbo loan is more of a conventional type of a loan,
Okay.
and it's done by other types of
other
lenders.
type, like called conventional loan.
Yep.
Instead of Fannie Mae.
And
Yeah.
generally speaking, Fannie Mae, FHA, those are the ones that are many times the first-time home buyers, or that the average home buyer goes
Right.
to, because they're generally trying to get people into their own residence, and they offer them a little bit more favorable interest rate.
Maybe you repeat and refresh again what benefit as a first-time home buyer. What can they get besides the interest rate is quite lower and.
Well, they can build equity, because if you're renting, every dollar that you spend on
They
rent,
help with the closing costs.
there are programs that offer that.
Okay.
But the key thing is, for every dollar that you spend on rent, you get nothing in return, other than shelter over your head for that month.
Exactly.
If you buy a home, you're building equity, because as you pay down your mortgage, once again, that spread between what the mortgage is at, and as you pay down the mortgage, it falls away, and then market value, so that gap, that profit starts coming into play.
Wow.
The longer that you hold it, the more years of appreciation that you get on the property as well.
More equity gonna be, right?
Yes.
Like the more money from the house, and at that time when they refinance it, they can get some cash out.
I've seen it where people will cash out on their own primary home and use that cash as a down payment to buy investment property.
Yeah, so that's a good move for that. So I see.
It's called leveraging.
Yeah, I see a lot of new house out there. Like keep continue building. Do you think like they have like too much? Like,
no, it goes back to what I was saying before, that here in Arizona right now we're probably short 70,000 homes, affordable homes,
affordable home, yeah.
for people to move into immediately.
I see.
And so part of that gap, where do the people live? And that's where rental properties come in.
Yeah.
So for the foreseeable future, this is going to remain a strong market for landlords.
But like, let's say if they all afford to buy a home, then landlord didn't make anything.
Well, that's true, but it seems like every time that you turn around, as soon as somebody can qualify to move out of your apartment, there's somebody else that needs an apartment.
Exactly, yeah, very quick, yeah, for those, yeah. People like looking like immediately, yeah, especially with a good location.
Yes.
So you can share with our audience like how can they what are the most important things to look for the investment property to buy?
Well, that's a good question, and I've got I've got a form that we're gonna.
The form called yes.
There we go.
There you go.
I'm not gonna show you the entire form,
Right.
But I use this form when I go out and I'm looking at properties for folks.
Yes.
And you can see right off the top, it's asking how many studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. The entire form's several pages, and if you would like a copy of the form, I'd be happy to send it to you, and we'll give you my information again pretty soon. But it goes into things like income, so that you can see exactly how much is being produced off the leases. Does the property have any laundry facilities? Because that's also laundry.
Oh,
because
okay.
that can be a source of income as well.
Oh, yeah. You mean like collect money, the corn?
Yes.
The corn one. Okay.
Yep. Vending machines, and some properties are bigger, some are smaller,
Yeah.
and this doesn't apply to it. But
yeah.
and then some properties will require you to put a deposit and pay for storage if you want to put things in there. So
Right.
those are sources of income.
Yes.
But then also on this form, down in the lower section, it gets into operating expenses. How much are the property taxes? Well, the property
Okay.
taxes are pretty easy to find out what they are right now. You can go to county records and look it up. Property taxes, the bills go out in September.
September.
October 1st is when the first half of your property taxes are due. So you get a chance, and most folks don't pay a whole lot of attention how much property taxes are
Okay.
if they have a mortgage, because their mortgage is paying, mortgage company is paying the property taxes and the insurance. And then while we're talking about insurance, you need to know how much your insurance is. You need to know if you're going to have a manager or you're going to self-manage. If you have a manager, most management companies are looking at anywhere between 6 and 10% to manage your property for you. Advertising fees. What do you do if you have tenants who are, a vacancy? How do you advertise for filling those spaces up? Utilities. Is it master metered? In other words, does the water come in and there's 1 meter and 4 lines going out in a four-unit apartment complex, so that you pay just the landlord, you're paying the water bill.
Oh, but what if is a separate? Then they pay their own, right?
And some properties are set up
separate.
so that they have individual
meter. Yeah.
So those are the types of things that you need to know before you go ahead and buy the property. You want to know who does water and sewer. Is it septic?
Okay.
There's still a fair number of septic systems out
What's
there.
that mean? Yeah, maybe you can explain
Sure.
the septic. Yes.
Most folks are, when you flush the toilet and you live in the city, there's a big drain line and it goes to a main line that typically goes into a city treatment center. And that's what most of us are familiar with. If you get into some of the outlying areas where they did not have city services for years, and in some cases they're still a ways away from getting city services, the way that they get rid of their sewage is they still have the same drain lines, the toilets and everything work the same, but there's usually a big tank buried in the ground. And there's bacteria that it's introduced into the tank to encourage the materials that come out of your toilets and everything to start breaking down. And then there's typically lines, pipes, perforated pipes that extend out from that box, anywhere from 50 to 70 feet. And it allows that liquid to run out of there and drain naturally into the ground. And that's a septic system.
Septic system. So
And that's a simple form of septic system.
Okay.
And the thing about septic systems, they're regulated by the state of Arizona.
Okay.
Department of Environmental Quality, they require that every time a property is sold that has a septic system, it must be opened up, pumped out, and inspected. And then there's a state form that has to be filled out, and then notice of transfer so that the new owner their name goes into the state.
So usually, where are those areas that has the septic system? Because I know, in the city, not right.
No, well,
Yeah,
it's kind of funny. On occasion,
Oh.
you do have them because I think we were talking about county islands.
Oh, okay.
A county island
yes.
may not have city services. It may be a county
do
area,
this.
and so they don't have city sewer systems to them.
Oh, I see.
Now, the longer that a city is incorporated, for example, you take Apache Junction
Right.
or Gold Canyon, and there's portions of both of those towns where the city or the sewer systems are expanding. So more and more folks come on. And generally, there's a grandfather clause, so that what that means is if you had a septic system and it's working, you can continue to use it.
Okay.
But if you have a septic system and it fails for any reason,
Yeah.
then you have to connect to the city sewer system.
How do you know it's fail or?
You'll have sewage backing up.
Oh, really? Wow. So this is important because if they buy something, important to know that they know so how frequent that they have to do the clean out.
Usually they suggest every few years to open up the tank and clean it out, pump it out.
And so all that information gonna show in the where the information disclosure. Is that the closure form?
Well, typically it comes from the septic company that does the inspection on the septic tank.
Oh, okay.
And they'll,
So at the time they purchase the property, they will have the up-to-date date
Yes.
of the one that just inspect and then follow up
That's
with the
correct.
person. Oh, so only like when they backed up, then they know, or they just have to do it frequently every few years?
You know, it's funny because
Uh-huh.
I've had clients who have had septic tanks for 30 years
Mm-hmm.
and never had them pumped.
Oh, really?
They work just fine.
Oh,
I've
wow.
had other clients who had septic tanks,
Mm-hmm.
and after 3 or 4 or 5 years, they have to have it cleaned out every 3, 4, 5 years.
Oh, boy.
But you know, one of the things that there's ways to prolong the life of your septic tank, and it's
Yeah.
not flushing a whole lot of paper products or
Right.
T-shirts
Because
or
it's stuck there and stay there.
And it just doesn't
it's
break down
doesn't
real
break
quickly.
down. Oh, that's good things to know. Wow. So,
Additionally, you'll want to know what your utilities are on the property. You'll want to know whether you've got termites, whether you got bees, whether you
Oh.
got scorpions.
right.
Um,
Scorpion, yes.
Do you have a pool? Because if you have a pool, there's regulations that the state imposes on homeowners for safety. You know, to keep the backyard where the pool is locked up so that you don't have little kids that can
Oh.
just inadvertently get into the pool.
Oh.
Um,
So that's required to have a gate on all the pool?
the state requires
To
safety
do that? Safety that?
safety things, and
Oh,
it
okay.
can be self-closing doors,
Uh-huh.
self-latching gates. Can be a fence around the pool, locking
Anything.
doors.
But who inspect those?
Well, usually that's inspected at the time of the home being sold,
Uh-huh.
and if you have a problem, you know, a bad problem where say someone drowns, that could
Oh, that
that
could be
the-
one violation.
That could be exactly
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
You'll want to know about your air conditioning system because the technology for air conditioning systems has changed several times here over the last 10 years, and it's in the process of changing again. Air conditioners are expensive, and as we all well know, we need them.
Now, we gotta have it.
We got to have them. So the key thing there is to make sure that your air conditioner is working, the technology is about as current as you can get, and that it's fully charged and fully cared for. If you have employees, on occasion you may have enough properties that you've got to have an
Payroll.
employee
Uh-huh,
that
yeah.
stays on the property. So that has to be accounted for.
Uh-huh.
Security.
Security.
We all want to live in a place where we feel safe and secure. And so that's one of the things as a landlord, that's your responsibility to make your environment there for your tenants as safe as possible. Rubbish removal. Who's hauling trash? Is the landlord doing it, or is the
I think the tenant will need to know when to take out the trash can or
Yep.
something.
And if you live in the city, usually it's pretty easy because
Uh-huh.
your water, sewer, trash, that all kind of comes through as one bill. But if you live in some of those areas where you might have a septic tank, you may have to
Yeah.
hire one of the garbage companies to come out and pick up your trash.
Oh, true.
Who's doing the maintenance? Who's taking care of the roof? Who's taking care of the parking lot? And then other things, accounting, legal. The one thing that I can always say to anybody, whether you purchase a residential property for investment or whether you purchase a commercial property for investment, nobody cares about your money as much as you do.
Exactly.
You need to drive out and look at your property from time to time
All right.
and choose different hours to do it. You might be surprised that it's, you know, at night that it's all the lights are on and
Oh, yeah.
and there's people there and it's vibrant and it's inviting. Or you might get there and you might find that you've got some unsavory characters there in your parking lot just hanging around. So those are the types of things that feed both back to the security of the property, but also to the overall value of your property. And they're things that you want to know. And then, of course, once you've collected the information on how much income you have and what your expenses are, you can arrive at what your net operating income is, which very simply is just you subtract all the expenses from all the income. And what you're left over with is your net operating income.
I see.
Hopefully you're making enough to pay your mortgage. But that, going through this type of an exercise before you get a loan on a property is exactly how you avoid getting yourself into a bad position.
Right, true. So let me ask you here, as like you mentioned, kind of scary on the security things in regard to, let's say if they buy the piece of property and there's a homeless people come like that, what right can they do? Can they call like a law enforcement to
Yes.
remove, or
Yep.
how do they do?
Yep.
Yeah.
If it's on your if it's a residence, a personal property, and you've got homeless, by all means, call the police department, call the sheriff's department, have them come out. They can remove the folks, and they can be warned not to return or they can be charged with trespassing. But the bottom line is they don't have a right to be there, and it's your property. You have the right to be safe and secure in your property.
You think the law enforcement will respond to that?
Yes.
Come out when,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's a good thing to know, because sometimes no one want to deal with that situation, with the
Well, it
homeless.
can be a little bit scary because you don't know you're
What
not
they're
trained
gonna
for
do.
it,
Yes.
and you don't know how people are going to react.
react. Yes, exactly. Is there, like in Arizona, I just want to know an outside things, like, is there an area where the homeless can stay, or they
There are places in several of the cities where they have accommodations for homeless, but let's face it, they're overwhelmed.
Oh, I
So
see.
they're looking to add more space all the time. And then you have a portion of the homeless who they don't want to be in those facilities. They want to be out on their own.
You think, like, because of their mental issue, right? They don't think.
Well, I think there's a whole variety of different things that lead to homelessness.
Sad to know that. Yeah. Okay, so we move on. Like you will mention that how they look at a piece of property, all those information you provided, so that they can think of if this is the right property that they want to invest or they want to
Exactly.
purchase, right? Yeah.
But collecting that information is important because.
So where can they collect those? Like they will ask the.
Would you put that next form up, please?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the basic loan calculation form that we use on occasion. And this gives you kind of a thumbnail's guess on what a lender is going to want to collect. And just like we got done talking about a minute or two ago about income and expenses, those same things come back onto this form because the lender's going to want to know what those incomes and expenses are.
Right.
They're going to want to know what your net operating income is.
Exactly.
When they know what your net operating income is, then they'll know what your ability to service the debt.
Yeah.
And there is a
Debt ratio.
debt service ratio. Generally speaking, what most lenders are looking for is to see that your net operating income is at least 120% of what your debt is.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yes.
So if you have $10,000 in debt that you have to pay for your mortgage, they're going to want to see that you're pulling in
Like
at
20,
least
25,
12,000.
Yeah, 12,000. Yeah.
That way it kind of.
So they're
you-
thinking like you satisfy all that debt before, and then you still have some money, right?
Exactly.
But is
'Cause
that how they calculate the income of the piece of property or the income of the purchaser?
that's for the purchaser,
Oh, okay.
their ability to go ahead and service that loan.
I see.
The income of the property was what we were collecting when we were looking at the leases, the vending machines, the
Right.
laundry, all of that type of stuff, and adding it all up.
I see.
But this form as well as the other one that we just talked about, I have them available, and if you'd like a copy of it, I'd be happy to send it to you.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
I might add,
Yeah.
I've been
he
with-
has so many forms. Everyone, if whatever that you need help on, you can always call him. His phone number is right there. 480-213-7691, or you come up to www.scottbarlowe.com and send you an email. Either way, or text, right? Yeah.
Text, email.
Text, email.
smoke signals.
So you name it. Yeah. Okay. So So then,
But just to give you an idea, when I
Yeah.
first started work with S.J. Fowler Real Estate,
Uh-huh.
and this is why he's different than a lot of other real estate companies.
uh-huh.
We have a form that we use in the office, and this one comes from Steve and the main guys. But as a new agent, you're given these, and you need to go out and look at 35 properties
Ah,
over several days. The idea being able to get out there and look at a property and drive by, see what the roof looks like. Now, you can't go inside because, you got tenants' rights, so
Yeah.
you can't go in the apartment.
that's true.
But you can gather information about that property pretty quickly. You can look at the roof, which is one of your big expenses. You can look at the air conditioning units. They're generally roof mounted or
Or
ground mounted,
yeah.
and you can pretty quickly tell, is this a well-maintained property or is it not?
Ah,
And you can look and see how many meters. In other words, does it have 5 meters on the building?
okay.
If it has 5 meters on a 4-unit building, what it tells you is you've got 1 meter, which is probably handling your exterior lights, and then the other 4 meters tells you that the individual apartments have their own individual power supplies.
Oh,
So that would be
so can you repeat again? So how did they determine that?
by looking at the number of electric meters on the outside of a house
Okay,
or outside of an apartment building.
all right.
You can tell whether or not the tenants are paying for their own electricity
Oh.
directly to SRP or APS. Because that meter, if it's going to their apartment, they're the one that's being billed on it.
I see. Okay. And
Now
the water
same,
too.
water's the same thing. So if
yeah.
you drive up to a property and you only see one of
Meter.
those meter boxes,
Uh-huh.
it's likely that you've got a master meter, and so the landlord is probably paying the water bill
Or spread it evenly.
and then has to break it out, or however they want to handle it.
Yeah.
But if you see 4 out there, it gives you a good idea.
So
that-
that's a good idea that they don't have to worry about the utility because that's not easy to deal with.
Yep.
They use overboard.
Now, when you have a rental property,
Uh-huh.
I can tell you, one of the things that unless you have a good sized property, you probably don't want to have a pool.
Oh,
Because a pool
It's true.
is fairly expensive to maintain,
Yeah.
and there is liability to it.
yeah.
But other things that can be expenses that you need to consider is your appliances, refrigerator, oven, that your tenants are using, so that you're going to have to supply those in many cases. And if they break down, you're probably going to have to repair them. So those types of things, they all fall into what your operating expenses are, and you need to consider them.
So yeah, I know like this is something like everyone have to put a thought into getting an investment and get the renter because important that you get a good tenant. If you don't get a good tenant, it won't be good. If a tenant cause trouble and want to create problems so they don't pay rent or all that, then that's really a big issue. Maybe we can talk about that, and someday
Well,
when we go detail.
Absolutely,
about it.
absolutely. And, one of the things that you need to do is remember that you have to adhere to the United States Fair Housing laws,
Yes.
as well as the Arizona Landlord Tenant Act.
Yep. Yeah. So all those we have to kind of look, and we know the rights, and we have to act accordingly, for that. Yes.
Well, if you think of your tenants as customers, I mean, they're paying you, you brought them in, you want to treat them right, you want to keep them there for a long time, and you want to continue to get their business. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Good to get a great tenant. Of course, we have to do every part. But I'm talking about the bad tenant. Like sometimes they lease it to somebody else without letting the landlord know. Then they break the contract, right?
That's it.
And also, like let's say they don't have a pet, then all of a sudden they have like 5-6 dog in there. Destroy the property. Like those are the tenants that we talk about. So that's why I'm saying that there's many out there, but how can you pick the right tenant?
Well,
for
first
that?
off, you want to do good tenant screening.
Yeah.
Do a credit check, and there's
Yeah.
a number of different places where you can do it. Then you want to make sure you've got a good lease.
Yes.
And there's a number of different places where you can get leases. The Arizona Realtors Association has their own lease that we get. But I've had clients that had what I thought were great leases, but they address those types of things specifically. And then, of course, what's the action? If somebody's in breach of the lease, then, you know, and the person that's got 5 or 6 dogs, you don't want to keep them in there in your apartment because they're destroying your property.
Exactly.
So you can move forward with eviction proceedings against them.
Yes.
Get them kicked out.
Yes. So there's many things like that. I just bring up some of the scenario about the investment on the multiple, stay one, live one. But of course, they want to know some of those experience, and maybe like you can share that later. Too many scenario out there, right? So that because sometimes they don't know what to do when the situation arrives, you know, and maybe they wait too long, or maybe they don't serve correct way, things like that, you know, or many things like that.
You know, there's some excellent sources out there, and I generally don't brag about attorneys, but there is a law firm that's here in town that produces a book. It's called the Arizona Landlord Desk Book, and it's got timelines, forms, all kinds of things in there that are
3 day,
available.
5 day,
You name
30 day, things like that. Right?
But there are resources out there, and then they're usually pretty inexpensive.
Okay, all right, that's good for the resources. So I know that we have quite a bit of things to cover. I think more and more things people want to know when you talk about certain things, because that's create a lot of question more and more to the topic. But I think we ran out of time, and we have to like if you can wrap up something, like anything quick, and then we can say goodbye, and then next time we come back again, and
You
we
bet.
can get
You bet. The biggest thing that I can say is, and you've heard me say it before, nobody cares about your money as much as you do. The best thing you can do is learn. And some of these resources that we're putting out here, they're free. I can refer you to other places where it's free. There's no reason for you don't need to go get a college education. But there are things that you need to do to prepare yourself so that you can compete in the market and make sure that you're reducing your own personal risk.
That's great. Yep. So thank you for watching VATV. We are doing the bigger series about investment for the beginner as we move forward. And Scott is a very knowledgeable individual in real estate, and he has many years in experience. He can help us to understand more deeply into any situation arise. You can always send a question over to vaatv.com, or you can send directly to Scott, azrealestate@msn.com, and he can address our situation for you individually. Any common question, you can always reach out to us, vaatv.com. Thank you so much for coming, and
thank you for having me.
We're gonna have like this show. We will continue doing once a week, but only like next week we skip, and then the following week we will come back again the same day, same time.
Very good.
Hopefully everybody will participate more. And this is a time so you can think of like a very tough question to challenge Scott. Thank you for watching VATV. I'm LINHVI and this is Scott. Say bye.
Bye bye.
LINHVI xin cảm ơn sự theo dõi của tất cả quý vị trong những giây phút vừa qua. Chương trình VATV xin kính chào, tạm biệt và xin hẹn gặp lại quý vị vào lần phát hình kỳ tới. Mọi chi tiết về thông tin thương mại và bảo trợ, xin mời quý vị hãy liên lạc về địa chỉ email vaatelevision@gmail.com và số điện thoại là 480 289 9816 480 289 9816, website vaatv.com và vaaznews.com. Xin kính chào, tạm biệt.